I think we should be there now.
Yeah, I see the indicator.
Okay.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's bright glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
System malfunction.
Been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete into a rose, stuck by the code. I'm trying to take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete into a rose, stuck by the code. Been by the code, you know how I be. Been by the code, you know how I be. Welcome to my world, this shit not no joke, I'm right at your throat. Hoping you taking the time to cope with me running my race, you not at my pace. These niggas act like I'm not goated, but already know I've been him on the low. I did it myself, I'm fond of the code. I don't need your hand, bitch, I'm good on my own. I'm painting my pain, all them thoughts even yours. I give her the pipe, she told me I'm generous, moving real diligent. Blue bands on me, earning my stripes. I say how I feel, I go where I grow. I bag up a fortune, it's all for the sport, I'm feeding my soul. Been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete to a rose, it's stuck by the code. I'm trying to take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete to a rose, just don't get too close. Been by the code, you know how I be. Grew out the mud pit to a rose, don't get too close. Been by the code, you know how I be.
When you wake up in the morning, you got two choices. Go back to sleep and dream your dreams, or wake up and chase your dreams. Choice yours.
System malfunction.
What is happening, YouTube? It's download malfunction. This is the space where we shine the light on the madness and the dysfunction that is rampant in our society today. The modern world, in all of its glory, in my opinion, has metastasized into one big ball of cancer, and the condition is critical. I think that most people would look at Armageddon as something that's easily recognizable. You know, there would be just catastrophe rampant, large bombs exploding, massive fires, and people running through the streets for their lives. But I think that that is not what we should be looking for, because I think that Armageddon has been upon us for quite some time. And its destruction can easily be seen in our society. And what lay in Armageddon's wake has long since permeated the bloodstreams and the psyche of all of us. And my question is there some sort of antibody or serum that would act as a remedy to ward off this poison? My preliminary answer, and I would have to say my overall answer, is no. So that is the premise of this channel, Download Malfunction, and the reasons why I started this channel, which was to highlight the sinister behind the machine in hopes that that sparks conversation where we could all come together to talk through these issues so that we can all sort of collectively gain knowledge from one another in order to move forward in a more calculated fashion and to not find ourselves in more suffering. So, welcome to the first episode. And this being the first episode, it's always fitting to start from the foundation. Like anything, there is always a historical context that needs to be presented first before you can move to the next step. And because I don't have all the answers, which is another reason why I started this channel, to bring on like minds to share their thought process and perspectives in order to help me grow. This discussion today is open to all those that care to share, and I appreciate all and any engagement. So the topic today is on this idea of American or Americanism. But before we dig into it, if you can please like this live, if you can please like the live, subscribe to the channel, and if you think anybody else might benefit from this message, please share it out to them. And if you happen to come into the chat, we'd like to know where you're coming in from. So let us know. Maybe you can put in your city, your state, down in the comments section so we all know where you're tuning in from. And if you don't care, just type in GFY, which is the same thing as go fuck yourself, and that would be just fine as well. If you don't want to come up to join the panel, but maybe you have a question that you want the panelists to be able to field, please start the question with a capital Q so that it can be easily picked up amongst the potential comments. This being the very first live, I'm not anticipating a lot of folks to join, but just in case they do, we're able to easily recognize that cue. So we do have a few guests on the panel who are here to take part in this discussion and give their thoughts and perspectives around the topic. So in a second here, we'll go through the introduction so you can get a feel for who these lads are. But again, this live is open to any and everyone to come up and join the panel and share their sentiments as well. And if you're camera shy, that is okay. You don't need to be on camera and show your face. The link is posted in the chat, and if not, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, actually. So just give me 2 seconds. So the link is in the chat. You'll see it there. It's guest at eCam. And so if you do decide to come up and join the panel, once again, you don't have to show your face. All you have to do on the back end is grant a permission to be able to allow your camera and your mic. But once again, you don't have to utilize your camera. You have to grant that access and type your name in a little box at the very bottom. And then from there, I'll go ahead and put you in the green room. You can kind of chill there for a little bit. And when the time is right, we'll go ahead and beam you up so you can share your viewpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on the panel. We got three gentlemen here who there's one who's blacked out. So we just kind of go around the horn. Maybe we'll go in clockwise. So we'll start at the very top with Qataris. If you can just let everybody know where you're coming from, maybe what your occupation is or whatever it is that you do to feed yourself. And then how did you come across Download Malfunction?
Name's Qataris. Coming from Guam, and I'm ex-military. I kind of still work with the government from time to time. And I came across download malfunction. I tend to watch different channels that cover the same topic, but then I came across this channel, and it was well edited, and the thoughts were similar to my own. Like some of the same observations were made on this channel, and so I felt compelled to make detailed comments to to each video, and here I am.
Awesome. Qataris, appreciate that, man. And also appreciate your service. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for your collaboration. And so we'll go in clockwise. There's a dark screen up there. Let me go ahead and unmute Slide Disciple. Slide Disciple, can you share your name, what you do to feed yourself, and how you came across the channel?
I'll skip directly to how I came across this channel.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the content you have, I watch a lot of similar stuff, about social issues and current events, history, politics, and all that. So the algorithm suggested your channel.
Awesome. That's nice. YouTube is getting kind of ripe and rich. All right, perfect.
Yeah,
Appreciate.
it's become a cesspool of censorship.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is clearly happening across social media. You know, they will find a way to control us. You know, a lot of people think that having a social media platform gives them free reign to kind of talk and discuss, but people need to realize that that is owned by somebody and a corporation that has their own views and perspectives. So they can decide what does and what does not get out. But appreciate the collaboration, Slide Disciple. And the third, we got Don the coach. You can go ahead and answer those three questions if you will, please, sir.
Well, what's going on, everybody? My name is Don. My channel is Don the Coach. I'm a content creator. Purpose of my channel is basically to strive to help people learn life lessons from everyday scenarios, as crazy as they may be. I ran across download malfunction. I guess a gift. It was a gift from the algorithm. It dropped right into my lap. And once I saw the content, I knew it was quality. Had to reach out to my brother, and we've been rocking. And we've been rocking ever since. So I'm really enjoying the partnership, and the brotherhood is all good.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Don. Thank you very much, and appreciate that collaboration. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, it's always good to start from a foundation, get the basic understandings of things, whether that's another individual's perspective on things, and so on and so forth. So, being that this topic is around this idea of what American is, Americanism, who can be an American, I got about four or five questions that I want to pose to you, gentlemen. And I know that in these discussions, oftentimes, that these conversations can splinter off in different directions, and that's okay because we're just having a conversation, and wherever it goes, we'll go ahead and attack it in that area as well. But the first question I have is, what is an American? And when I ask that question, I know it sounds sort of general, but in your minds, what exactly is an American? And Don, since you ended last, I'm going to go ahead and since you were warm, ask you that question if you can provide an answer to that.
Oh man, it's a very, very solid question. I mean, it definitely sounds simple, but there's so many levels to it. I mean, for me, I mean, there's a couple aspects. I mean, one is just being born here. It literally, just being American is just being in a position where somebody just pops you out in the right place. But on the other side of the coin, also being, a veteran, I also look at it from somebody who's, defended, said country. I mean, kind of holds a little bit of weight to it, but really when it comes down to it at the most basic level, it's just the luck of the draw. You happen to be dropped in this particular location in the world, and that's your lot in life, if you will.
I see. So for you, it's being conceived on American soil, North American soil, constitutes an American, or a veteran who has served in the armed forces in some form or fashion will be considered an American.
Yeah, I mean, like if it was, basically, that's kind of why I'm going for,
I
because what I
got you.
look at is just, you're either going with, me. I guess there's another side to it. I don't want to deviate too far based on where we're going, but I was looking at it. I know the birth thing is a kind of be an issue. I don't know if you heard of the term anchor babies. I know that's uh, a thing that was an issue in like Arizona, some of the southern states have borders like Mexico, things of that nature, and that was kind of an argument because some immigrants would come and they would have their kid in North America, and it was like, well, the kid was born here, they're American, and that was kind of the deal. Versus, in other parts of the world, you could be born there and they'd be like, you're still not a citizen. But one of those things about America. But yeah, but in general, I was just gonna go with, yeah, you're born here by law, you're American, and I always give a little extra credence to those who actually fight for the country.
No, appreciate that answer. Um, Now let's go back to Sly Disciple. What is an American in your mind?
Well, it's somebody who lives according to a set of values, mainly like the Bill of Rights, the American Constitution, like the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, and all that. And yeah, basically that's my idea of what an American is.
Okay, so does it necessarily have to be like Don's point, someone who was born in America? You know, what if it was someone who was raised in until they're 30 years old in Southeast Asia and then immigrated to the United States? At what time do they become an American?
Well, basically they're the ones who decide.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, like if they feel like they're an American, that's pretty much their choice.
Okay,
They're yeah, it's basically when they've accepted and those values, like granted by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and when they've absorbed enough American culture, basically, like I said, it's up to them to know if they're an American or not.
I got you. Okay, perfect. Appreciate that, Sly Disciple. All right, Kataris, being an ex-military man, fought for this country, blood, sweat, and tears. What is your perspective on that question?
You know, being anybody can be an American. That's the beauty of America. In other countries, to quote what Sly said, uh, people decide when they want to be an American. I mean, you've had people that are born here that don't appreciate America as much as I've encountered people within the military that really wanted it bad enough, and they came from all sorts of places. Like when I enlisted, there was a guy from Bhutan, which is near Tibet. He enlisted, to get his citizenship. So you have people that really want it that come here legally, like they go through the process and they get here. So I feel like if you have the drive to do it, then anyone can be an American. That's what makes our country amazing.
Okay, cool, awesome. So now, would that be the same? I know we are, and I don't want to be the run to derail the topic, but so say for the most part, I've spent maybe you know 5 decades in the U.S. and I decide to move to Guam. Can I be a Guamanian?
I mean,
Or
yeah, they're very open, but because I mean, this is where America's day begins. People kind of get confused. They think Guam is like another country. It kind of is and isn't in the sense of the culture out here is a lot different. It's not like Hawaii, but um, out here, so long as because it's America as well, so it's like if you come here and you adapt to life here and you're laid back, people are very laid back here. You're accepted.
I
This
got
is
you.
the first place I've ever been where it's that simple.
Yeah. So and maybe that was a bad example because Guam is, I think, is a protectorate, like
Hmm.
United States protectorate, right, or something like that. I don't know the specifics or the legal terms around it,
Yeah,
but
it's an incorporated territory, and basically that and Saipan, all of CMI, all of the islands out here.
okay,
They use the American dollar, American post office. There's like two big bases out here.
I got you. Now, with the Guamanians, from what you know and residing there for the length of time that you've been there, would they consider me a Guamanian, or would they call me
If you
something
can,
else?
well, the local people here are called Chamorro,
Chamorro.
the ethnic people that are from here. Like you can't necessarily say you're a Chamorro because you're not born here, but you can say you're a Romanian if you live here.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Well, I see. Got a couple folks that have joined the live. Um, Brody Hill. I mean, you're welcome to come up if you feel like it. We have the topic today is what is this idea of American or Americanism? And there is a link at the chat, at the top of the chat, actually. It says guest.ecamlive. You can go ahead and click on that, and we can bring you up if you care to share your perspective on that. We got a few topics that we're going to be talking about centered around this topic of Americanism. So I'm going to show you guys a quick little video, and you'll recognize this gentleman because he was one of our late presidents. And he gives his perspective on what an American is, or at least in his mind, what constitutes an American. So let's take a look at this real quick.
I am American. I was born.
Actually, this is a different video. So this is a conglomerate of students that were pulled by NPR, and they give their perspective on that. So let's just kind of get an idea of their sentiment and how they feel around this topic.
I am American. I was born and raised in America. But see, that to me is a really loaded question because I don't know that I feel American per se. I know I feel like a New Yorker.
I didn't grow up under an American influence like a lot of people. I grew up in poverty.
My parents immigrated here from the Soviet Union because of religious persecution. Getting new opportunities. That's why I came to America. The opportunities that my parents didn't have back there are abundant here.
America is not just white. America is colored people.
Even though I'm a straight white male, I've always identified as somewhat of a minority because of the Jewish status. But I've always felt a little bit like a sheep in wolf's clothing rather than the reverse.
For a good portion of my life, I would identify myself as, Chinese American. The hyphen, it's very important,
When I'm with my family, my extended family, I really feel like I'm Afghan. And when I'm with my friends, I really feel like I'm American.
I think nowadays I just say I'm American and that's that. I came from the Dominican Republic 3 years ago, actually. And it was a hustle to get a citizenship, to not be an immigrant. I still kind of don't feel like an American.
Being American was what you'd see on TV or on the news or on sitcoms. It is something that was in another world to me and didn't always seem real.
When people meet me, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, "What are you?" And that makes me feel like I'm not allowed to be American because of my skin color. And I don't really understand why, because I was born and raised in New York. But it's like my parents' background, it defines who I am, and it doesn't. That's not the only thing that defines me.
Finally, I have a document that tells everybody else that I am more than just a Dominican girl.
All right. So I think their responses, and was that glitchy to you guys on your side? Was it kind of choppy?
A little
A
bit.
little bit.
Yeah. I apologize for that. I don't know what's happening. I think when I originally uploaded that video, it was pretty clean. So I think that sort of, their experiences are sort of all over the place. Few of them were born here, but didn't feel like they were American, right? Some people had immigrated from different countries, got their their nationalization papers or whatever. They went through the whole rigmarole. So they're certified to be Americans, but there's an underlying sentiment that they don't feel like they're American. And so my question is, why do you think that is? I mean, it was clear that the vast majority of those people who gave a response gave a very uncomfortable response. It wasn't, although they're living here, been here for a long time, some were born here, parents from different countries. In their hearts and their minds, you can clearly tell that there's a massive amount of uncomfortness there. So, what do you think happens to people, or why do you think people feel the way that those respondents felt? I'll start with Sly. Sly Disciple.
I guess because in their mind, to be like a real American, you'd have to be like white, I guess, white Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
America is a melting pot of cultures. So I would assume that, yeah, some of them have different heritages. They come from various places, so they don't feel like an American because they're not white American, I guess.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Appreciate that answer. How about you, Qataris? What do you think? What do you think is causing them to have that uneasiness about being an American?
You, you know what's
Because I'm
interesting,
sorry,
and
because your response was that anyone can be an American,
yes,
as it relates to this question. So, with that being said, why would these people feel the way that they do when it comes to that question?
so, and I think I've told you this story before, but when I was living in Korea, especially like when I was in the service, I would get asked questions by the locals all the time. Like they would ask me things about America, and I would have to explain to them, well, America means different things to different people. It's based on where you were born and how you look. And I asked them a simple question. What do you think an American is? What do you think an American looks like? And they sat and they thought for a moment, and then they said, tall, white, blue eyes. And I just looked at them and I was just like, I mean, there are people that look like that, but you described like a Swede or like a German. Like
Or
the
yeah,
correct answer
Aryan
is,
race.
yeah, the correct answer is an American looks like me, like themselves. They can be American. Anyone can be American. I think the issue with America is branding. It's been branded a certain way to appeal to a certain group of people. It's like a one size fits all. And kind of like a BMW or a Benz, like it's marketed one way. When people look at it, they only look at it one way. That idea of it, not what it actually is.
I see. Appreciate that. Don the coach, what do you think about that? Why would these people feel so uncomfortable, even though they were born on the soil, or their parents brought them here, immigrated here, but still there's this massive uneasiness about Americanism? I think you're muted, Don. Oh no, maybe not.
I might
There
have
you
been
go.
muted. Sorry
Yeah,
about
there you
that.
go.
I remember there was this Asian American comedian, and he was making a joke talking about how he was born in Detroit, and he's like, guys would come up to me and they'd be like, hey, where you from? And he's like, I'm from Detroit. And then he say, look at him and he's like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Where you from? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just this kind of like thing where people try to pull out of you. Like, we want to, like, yes, I know, okay, you might be born here, but where you really from? Where's your origins? Like, what? Because I mean, America is that, as it was stated before, it is a melting pot. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of mixes. So people generally are interested in knowing what you are or where you from. What's the roots that you come from? You look at some Asian like, well, what are you? You Japanese? You Korean? What are you like? You know what I mean? What African country? Or you German? You Dutch? I mean, so it's just like, I mean, even though it's like we all run under the band of America is like, just one of those. It's like I don't know what to call it, a header, subheader kind of thing. I mean, we know the hyphen, that's the one lady mentioned, just that Chinese American, African American, and it's something about, it's like, yeah, you're American, but you always still kind of this other thing. And I even like what homegirl, when she was talking about, when I'm with my family, I feel Afghan. when I'm back in with my friends, I feel American. It's just like, you flow with your society, you flow with your culture. And America doesn't necessarily have one unique culture that defines it, because we're not a homogenous society. You know what I mean? Because of that, it's just everything is everything. So you can go, you can live in America and have a completely unique experience from someone else that lives in America as well. I mean, I imagine living in California might be a bit different than living in Atlanta, Georgia. You know what I mean? So, or I mean, northeast Boston, or living in Wyoming. I mean, these places are completely different. Ideologies are different. The way they feel, the way they treat people, is just the population density. All these things play a factor, and yeah. So it's just a very unique concept overall. But
Yeah. Hey,
yeah,
a couple different points, and I'm guilty of this as well because, you know, I've come across a lot of people, if I was, for example, if I was to use Asian folks that I come across, oftentimes, you have the meet and greet, you introduce yourself, you're having a conversation, trying to build some rapport. And I always ask, because I'm interested in Asian culture, I always ask, where are you from? And I have been in a situation where, I've gotten a snarky response like, I'm from America, where, and I'm like, it's the wildest thing because even in myself, being born here on this soil, knowing that I'm an American, and to your point, Don, it's hyphenated for some reason, right? Which sort of draws a distinction in people's minds. I've been guilty of this as well. So it's almost like a poison where you really can't see anything other than the classic quintessential blonde hair, blue eyed, uh, Caucasian individual being an American, right? I mean, um, so very interesting, very interesting. Now, anybody have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I have something. I've come to find that, like me myself, like why I left, like did my time in the military, came back, and why I left again, to go to that point where they talk about the uncomfortable things about being an American. When I was away, when I was like living in Korea, people would ask me all the time, but you're an American. Why can't you do X? Why can't you do Y? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm a Black American. It's different. Your experience, based on who you are in America, your version of America will be different. And it's I've come to find that the value of being an American is a little bit higher when you're outside of America, depending on who you are, because
Wow,
if you come from
interesting.
a background, where you have a nuclear family, you have a good support structure, and you have an environment, in the typical, when people think of the American environment, they think of, like especially like if you're from the Midwest, there's a lot of white people. No shade to white people, but it's like that's the kind of culture that people see. They don't see other people. That's why a lot of guys, they join the military, because it's like, well, one, they're trying to get a better life. Two, maybe they don't fit in where they're at, and they're trying to get out there and experience the world. And you need money to do that, and the military is a good way to get you out there and see these other cultures, and it helps you appreciate being American. But it's kind of like a love-hate relationship, because when you're gone, you miss certain aspects. But then when you come back, you're like, man, this is why I left. You
See,
know, like you were reminded. Now again, it depends on who you are. Like if you come from a good family background, and I can only speak as being a Black individual, because you've touched on this in a couple of your videos about how things can be for us, not just with dealing with the law, or dealing with buying a house, or dealing with, day-to-day life. Like, it's definitely, I guess I don't want to use the term, but you definitely deal with certain types of microaggressions.
for sure.
But I mean, it's something that the vast majority of us get used to, and we're like ducks. It rolls off of us. That's the price of doing business. But I've come to find that being away from America, it has more value to me. But when I go back, it's just like, oh man, I need to leave again.
Wow. Is it? Do you feel like it's freeing? You feel like there's not a lot of stress and uncomfortness when you're in the states versus being outside of the states. And what I mean by that, Qataris, is that do you feel like people who are in these other countries treat you different versus how you're treated within inside the states?
So it varies depending on where you are. So like for example, in Korea, not too many people you can encounter people that have never met a black person. Like the only thing they've done is seen them on TV. So it's kind of like you're going to have to get used to being an ambassador because you're going to get, oh, are you African? Because to go back to the point about, assuming that every white person is an American, when you're in certain other countries, everyone assumes that, you know, if they see you've got dark skin, they're like, "Oh, are you from Africa?" And it's like, "No, like I'm American. Like listen to my voice, look at the way I look. Like we do look different." A
Yeah,
lot of people I've come to notice that a lot of people don't understand the difference between an African and an American person. We do look a little different.
for sure.
But um in my experience, I haven't encountered blatant racism based on my skin tone. It's more of curiosity. So you have to get used to people wanting to touch your hair sometimes. And when they get comfortable enough where you like, hey, yeah, like I really want to touch your hair, or they touch your skin, like, oh, your skin is so smooth. Like they they anybody can open a biology book and understand why our skin tends to be smooth. I mean, we have more melanin, our skin's a little bit thicker, but
Yeah.
you know, that's not your average person doesn't think that. So you're an ambassador to your people when you go out there, and then you're representing black people, but then you're also representing being an American. So you have to balance those two things when you're out there. In a place like Japan, for example, the type of treatment you're going to get because of some of the things the military's done there, people, especially like with my type of haircut, people assume you must be military. So
Yeah, that high and tight.
yeah, your
Laying down
mileage
what's
may,
hot.
yeah, your mileage may vary out there. And in a place like Guam, for example, me as a black person, this is the first place I've ever lived where that armor we have to wear. There's a certain type of, and I'm pretty sure you can all agree as a black person, especially as a black man, there's a certain level of armor you have to wear day to day, where you have to watch how you speak, how you interact with people, because you deep down you kind of know if you make a mistake, someone could misinterpret you a wrong way, and it can cause a scene, it can cause an issue, and I mean, even for example, even if like say if you're in Baltimore, same thing. You could be amongst your own people, and you still kind of gotta watch yourself. But here, there there aren't too many white people. There aren't too many black people. It's mostly Chamorros and Asians. And the local people here, I always say this, and I'm pretty sure if anybody from Guam sees it, I say, Chamorros are just black people with good hair. And if you know, you know, And they laugh, they chuckle because they're like, yeah, we're kind of like that. Like they have kind of a similar culture to black people, that, mostly matriarchal society, and the type of music they listen to, kind of slang they use. You would like if you couldn't see them and you
Yeah,
just heard them talk, you would think you were hearing black people. So
I see. So if you're on the phone with them having a conversation, you would you would think that you're. I mean, I know they may have an accent because they're Guamanian, but you would think
yeah,
that you're talking to someone who is of uh, African descent or black.
yeah, because
Okay.
especially a lot of the people out here have dark skin. Like they have different facial features, but some of them as dark as me. So it's one of those things where because of their history, after World War II, the things that were done to them, they for the longest time they had animosity towards white people, not black people.
Wow.
So and that's changed. Like I have a friend who's white, and we go down south. The southern part of the island is like jungle and like I call it Guam Guam, like real Guam, like jungle, wild
Yeah.
pigs, boony dogs, things like that. And so long as you don't come to a place like this with that American, you know what I mean? Like, oh, in America we do it like this. How come you can't do it like this?
The
Hey, you
bravado.
gotta leave. Yeah, you gotta leave, and that's anywhere. Like whether you're in Korea, Japan, Guam, you gotta leave that at home and just kind of adapt to what the local people are doing. And for example, I speak Korean, so when I go somewhere, even here, because there's a lot of Koreans,
Yeah.
a lot of the time I can build rapport with someone just by speaking to them in their own language. So I make that a habit. I've lived a lot of different places, so I learn at least a little bit of the language, and that let they hear a familiar language to them, they're going to open up to you more.
Okay. Awesome. Appreciate that. Sly, disciple, you got anything on that?
Not really.
Not really. Now, just so you guys know, Sly is not African American, nor is he African. Sly is of Syrian descent, so he speaks Arabic, I believe, and
Yes.
uh, and I know you've spent some time. I know you're not in the States now, but you have spent some time in the States. Did you feel sort of this, uncomfortness that people who are not blonde hair, blue eyes feel?
Uh, Not really, no, because where I was, it was not just white people. There was blacks, there was Latinos, and all that. So it wasn't really that. It was just like kids at school were kind of making fun of my accent. I was 11 years old back then, so yeah.
I got you. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Let me see here.
Another thing I wanted to add is so I wasn't actually born in America. I was born in Germany.
Oh,
My mom
interesting.
was military, so I spent the majority of my formative years overseas. So when she eventually came back and retired, I was that one kid in class that if I saw you were from another place, like I'd be your friend.
Yeah.
Even if other people couldn't understand through your accent, I could.
Good man.
So I always felt gravitated towards outsiders because I mean, I feel like that as an American, like that's what you want. You want, because growing up with my mom, a lot of her soldiers were, from Korea, Vietnam, Puerto Rico. So you see all of these people and you grow up seeing that. Everybody knows like the 80s stereotypical soldier was like a buff black dude. Like, yeah, I don't know if you will watch action movies or army movies in the 80s. Like you always saw that, like the drill sergeant, big dude. And there was a reason for that. You have a lot of minorities within that group from different places. So I guess that's kind of shaped how I view America.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Don the coach. We got a lot of good information from Guitaris. I mean, he provided a lot of background, a lot of history, a lot of perspective on this topic. Um, what it means to be an American or how you're viewed around the world. I think you're over there on the East Coast. Um, how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, no, down here in Houston, Texas. Down here in Houston, Texas. But uh, one thing, one thing I say is just coming from the African American perspective. I'm fairly new to the travel game. I've been just a few places so far, um, but one of the things that I noticed, especially when it came to like just living normal every day to day, there's always this element is in America of being armored, as you mentioned, kind of always watching kind of what you say, how you move. You don't want to come off too aggressive, too intimidating. You kind of want to just ride the radar, just be just really casual all the time. I mean, you just want, because you just always just had that thing of like, I don't want nothing to happen, because if something happens, I'm a big black guy. Yeah, I mean, it's like, everybody always go to 10 when they see a big black guy. It's no like, oh, let's see how we can work through this. No. It's gonna be max level every time. So
Gotcha.
so that's always on my mind. It's so crazy because not like I live a lifestyle where it's so crazy, or so I do things that nature. I just know just my presence just can put people in a weird mindset. So I always have to move in a certain kind of way. So now I take that to my overseas experiences. And like the one I had the most, depth with is when I was in Southeast Asia. and I was in Thailand, and just the way I felt after a couple weeks just there, was is very unique. It was very refreshing because I didn't realize. I mean, I knew, but I didn't truly realize how guarded I'm always am when I'm in the States. I'm always guarded. Like, and I knew in my mind, like, I have to be this way, I have to be this way. But when you just walking among people who are just like, hey, they have the preconceived notion isn't there, is that they don't see the 0 to 100 when they see me. If something happens, it's like, oh, okay, sorry, it's all good. And it's like, everybody just moves on, it's like, oh, like, I mean, I never felt the weight of that come off my shoulders the way I did when I was over there and interacted with those people. They're nice, they're very welcoming, and if you respect their culture, you respect. I mean, it's the way they move. It's just like nothing but love all the way around. And I was like, man, like I remember when I was coming back, I was like, damn. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to. I was like, I don't want to go back to that. That stuff. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, because it's
been
funny.
there.
It's funny because it mentioned the whole just the whole American vibe. It's just like it's crazy that I have more value outside of America than I do inside.
Wow.
That's just a really weird concept. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because it's almost, I feel like there's zero benefit to being American here, being African. I mean, African American veteran, all these other stats I have is just like, I'm still just a big black guy at any
Yeah,
point, and I always feel like I got to remember that, which is like a weight in itself. But to be
Yeah.
somewhere where the only difference is when I'm there is like, you're just a foreigner. He's just a foreigner. And it's like,
yeah,
I'm a foreigner, just like this guy from Australia, this guy from Germany, this guy from Russia. We just all just looked at as Farang. We all a
Yeah.
bunch of Farang just running
Farang.
around, and as long as you're cool and you respectful, everybody cool. And it's like, man, it's
Yeah.
so nice. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting, unique perspective.
I think there's something to be said about that, man, because they say that stress is a killer.
Oof.
If you have to exist in a place where you're basically walking on eggshells, or you are hypersensitive to everything that's going on around you and how people will perceive you. I mean, that's a good thing in some form or fashion, but if it's the pressure of, you have a historical understanding that the world sees you different, even though you are an American and fellow Americans will treat you and see you differently, that stress is enough to take 10 or 15 years off your life, man. That's when you get like colon cancer, things just start to fail. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody needs to live in that perspective, and it's it's hard for others who haven't lived under that veil to see that or even partake in the conversation. And to that point, we got a comment from Whitley. I hope I'm saying that right, Whitley.
yeah. You said it right, Whitley.
Okay,
Shout out.
shout out Whitley. Thanks for the comment. Appreciate that. It says, and yet, in general, a white person isn't going to be point blank asked that unless family origins come up. So I guess that was to your point earlier. Appreciate that comment, Whitley. So I think we're gonna move on. You know, great content, great information, guys. I really appreciate that. Thanks for the collaboration. And with all that being said, when we think about America, when we think about like nationalism and being an American, right? Do you think that Americans do a fine job in taking care of themselves and making sure that their neighbors are, you know, living in a holistic, comfortable environment? Let me start with I'm gonna start with Slide Disciple. You've been quiet over there.
Uh,
Do you think they take
that's
care
a
of their
good
brothers?
question. Huh?
And my question is, do you think that Americans take care of their brothers?
Well, it depends. It's case by case. I can't generalize and say the whole entire American population takes care of their neighbors.
Okay. How about in general?
In general.
Yeah, I know we can never say all, right? I mean, we don't know
Yeah.
everybody, but in general, in terms of what you know of Americans and what you've heard and your experience when you were living here, would you say that Americans look after their neighbors and their brethren?
Overall, I would say maybe yes.
Okay. How about you, Don?
Uh, I would say, I mean, a little nuance, but generally, I would say no. I mean, America is very individual based. We don't really have strong family units. We don't have strong community units. So it's a really fend for yourself, dog eat dog kind of society. Even though it's this whole land of the free and all this you know aspects that come with it, and everything is so grandiose. But at the end of the day, everybody has to fend for themselves, and the whole concept of uh, your kids are taking care of you when you get older, and the grandma watching the kids and all this stuff happen. Like, no, that's not everybody. I mean, if you didn't come to America with that culture and you've just been American, that's a very, very foreign concept. I mean, when I hear like some of my friends overseas, they talk about, oh, I'm working so I can send money back home to my family, make sure I can, take care of my mom, my dad's elderly, this, that, and other. Whereas I got some other people, their parents are elderly and they struggling, but hey, you struggling on your own. Like, hey, like you're like, oh, like you gonna take care of your parents? They're like, I don't owe them anything. It's like I didn't ask to be here. Like, it's like that. It's like that. I'm not even joking. That's how people feel. It's just like, I mean, it's a it's a dog eat dog kind of vibe, and unfortunately, everybody just on constant survival mode. So it's like we don't have time to kind of focus on each other and take care of each other. Now, if I bring it back a little bit, I say there's pockets. Population density definitely plays a factor. Like, I mean, the whole concept of Southern hospitality is a thing. There is a thing where there is some places that might be more hospitable to each other than others. Like, you might find a little bit more if you go down to the good old South, the Georgias, the Carolinas. You might get around a neighbor who will give you some barbecue. What I mean, take care. But once you get to New York, that's a wrap. New York, that is a wrap. That
Laying
density
down what's hot.
so it's complete rap. So yeah. But generally speaking, when I think of it, like, no, just based on how the individual vibe is in America, how it is not too much support for your brothers or just for other people. But like I said, you can find pockets, but not overall.
So every man for himself, basically, is what I'm hearing.
Damn near.
Okay, Qataris, ex-military, holding it down for the country. Do you think that Americans take care of their own and make sure that their well being is considered?
So yes and no. And I say this because, for example, we as black people, and you mentioned this in some of your videos, the the way our family units tend to be constructed, we usually come from single family household or single mother households, fragmented families, and we as black people, one of the generic black people, I'm not talking about Africans like fresh off the boat African Americans, the real African Americans, because those guys, like even when I was in the army, those guys will work together. But with black people, and this kind of goes back to historic how things started in America for us and how things were socially engineered. We generally tend to stab each other in the back. You know, you're more likely to die of violence to someone that looks like you, unfortunately, than someone else. And that's kind of goes into what our armoring. It's like we know that we have to look out for ourselves. Now, have I seen other cultures like Asians, like fresh off the boat, or Hispanics fresh off the boat, people that just got to America, they still have their culture in their family, from where they started. Um, a lot of the times they'll work together. I mean, I've seen where typically, Koreans don't like the Japanese. It's about like from Korea. They don't like the Japanese. Japanese don't like the Koreans, and then they both don't like Chinese. But in America, you'll see that they might not necessarily always get along, but they'll work together because they're like, well, I'm Asian and I'm from another country, you're Asian, let's work together. And I've noticed you typically see like African immigrants that live in America, like they'll work together too. Now, it's not perfect, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but I tend to see Americans that come from somewhere else will tend to help each other. And my family background, atypical black eye family background, fragmented family. Um, I've been, for example, Whitley, the person that commented, I've been to her family gathering. She's white, and I've seen that.
Oh,
Yeah, like
nice.
they're from the countryside. Like her family's from the country, and they tend to, it's awkward for me because I'm not used to a family gathering where no one's arguing. You know what I mean? And people are storming off mad. So there are pockets of people, and for example, Guam is a prime example. When I first moved here, right, I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything. The realtor, and when I was here, there was a military exercise going on, so I couldn't get a rental car. The realtor loaned me their car for a week. I mean, I refilled it. I bought them a nice big steak from base, and I refilled their gas. But I mean, in America, you don't know me. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm renting a house. Like, I'm not gonna loan you my car. Like here, uh, it's one of the few places where like I jog at night. People will pull over and ask me if I need a ride. Like a random black dude at night, and I'm kind of tall. So
Yeah.
it's like people actually stop and ask me I'm okay. The police here, I'm not afraid of them. Like they'll pull over and they'll be like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Um, Here, the sense of community is a lot different. There's only like 260,000 people in Guam.
Oh, wow.
So I've come to learn that if you are in an area where it is smaller, like where we live on an island out here, um, and I'm not trying to take away from Guam, but it's a good mix of first and third world. Kind of to quote what Don said about being in Thailand, you're in a country that's quote unquote not as developed as the West, but the people tend to be more human and they tend to help each other more. Whereas when you get to westernized countries, to include, like I said, I've been to places like England, like people don't really want to take the time in general, they don't want to take the time to like care about you. And I think that comes like you said, population density. The more people you have, the less people matter. And when you're in a place where either people aren't as rich or there aren't as many people, people matter more. And
Gotcha.
you have a tighter sense of community and people are more human.
I gotcha. Awesome. Don, you got
It's
anything to add
funny.
to that
Yeah, it
about
kind of
this
remind me.
nationalism? Americans looking after each other. And I guess when I ask that question, I'm trying to think of like just the bigger picture. Does our government entities, the way
Uh,
our capitalist system is structured, do they do their best to make sure that Americans are taken care of?
Not at all. Not even a little bit. Like like this like America is just a corporate machine. I would almost say a demonic corporate machine that just eats the poor and now it's working its way through the middle class. Like it doesn't care what it has to eat to keep fueling itself to keep going. So all you can do is just keep sprinting as hard as you can on that treadmill to stay out of the grasp of this diabolical machine, and you don't even. And the thing is, like when you're born on this treadmill, you don't even realize you're on it. It's just this is where it always been, So you don't realize, like, man, it's like there's something different, and that's when I found, from traveling, like, wow, like there is another way to live. And it's kind of weird. Like I feel like I'm kind of a smart guy. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm kind of a smart guy. Like, how come I didn't figure this out before? Like, why it took me 30 something years to figure out, like, I can live a different way. Like
Yeah, yeah,
this perpetual rat wheel, this that I've been running on. It's just like it goes nowhere. It doesn't. I'm putting this effort, I'm putting this time in. Like, well, why am I chasing these material things? Why do I need a new phone every year? Why do I have to have the biggest house? Why do I have to have the newest Teslas? And there's a way, like, what's the point? Like, why do I do it? But it's such an interesting concept. I mean, that came from more of an introspective kind of searching of myself. At that, kind of looked at the world and I'm like, man, I'm doing too much. Like, like I'm doing too much. I gotta slow down. But yeah, overall, no, I mean, as far as the government goes, it's like, nah, I do feel that way. I really feel like it has nothing really for its people outside of it just trying to feed off of them. It's funny because I think I spoke with a young lady. Uh, I think it was where is she from? Somewhere in the Middle East. I can't remember her name, but she mentioned how, you know, like she been living here in the States for a while. She's like, yeah, America's terrible. she's like she was like,
Wow.
it's so much better back when my place she's like, you can go to school, you can do this freely, they make sure you're good. And sometimes I even listen to stories sometimes, when you hear about just even food. Like you listen to like in the EU, it's like they have what they call it. They have macaroni and cheese, but the macaroni and cheese isn't yellow because they found that the yellow coloring can cause all type of issues when your brain and development, things of that nature. But Americans stay yellow because Americans like yellow to look like cheese because it's associated. So it's
I
so it's
see.
like so outside of the fact that this thing can actually cause issues with development and children, things of that nature, it's like but that's the color they associate with cheese.
Yeah.
So that just shows you the whole corporate power. But I mean, that's a small thing. But when you look at so many other things along the way, you really start seeing it. Even things like pharmaceuticals, Ritalin, like they stop like across the world, most places to stop letting kids take it. You know what I mean? It's just like that stuff's terrible for them. America was like, give them more. Like don't give them less. This guy actually give them more. So it's just a whole thing. So I'm sorry, I've been running a while, but in general,
I got you.
no, I don't believe they necessarily have our best interest. And when I say they is kind of that shadowy word, right? Just
For
like
sure.
they, them, them
Yeah.
over there, just so yeah, we know who they are and we don't at the same time. So I
Sly
pass it off.
disciple. I got you. I appreciate that. Thanks for that, Don. Sly. I mean, from your vantage point, being outside the United States and looking in, what is your perspective on that? Do you see from where you are looking in that Americans are, a collective group that cares about each other and takes care of each other?
No, I would have to agree with Don. He described it to a T. He said it's a demonic corporate machine, and I completely agree with him. And one of the most blatant example is how veterans are treated. Like they went and they fought for the country. Well, and the corporations and government are the ones who profit the most. But then you see veterans fighting with the VA to get their benefits. I mean, they went and spilled their blood so that these corporations can line up their pockets, and they can't even buy them a wheelchair.
Yeah,
Like, what the hell? And one
completely
in
agree.
four veterans, one in four homeless is a veteran. So that doesn't make sense
Yeah,
when they're making billions off those wars, and they can't even take care of their veterans.
yeah. Well, sad, but for sure.
I have something to add to that.
And you
So,
got guitars.
um, it's true. The government. It's funny because growing up in like the '80s and the '90s before the internet, like the only way you had to really know what was going on is watch the news or read a newspaper. Like they could lie to you a lot easier back then. Now you have the internet. Like you can catch people in 4K now. They'll say something and somebody will clip it and put it on YouTube. And I've come to find, especially within the veteran community, a lot of vets aren't necessarily patriots. Like you start off that way, and that's part of your training, part of your indoctrination process is like hopped you up on America. You're like, yeah, America, whoa, like, yeah, I want to go down range, whoa, I want to engage, I want to do this, I want to do that. But then when you have time to really think about it, and then you kind of see the causality of it, the things that are happening, and while you're in, you can't really say anything because I mean it's part of the contract. You're not able to do that. But when you get out, a lot of veterans end up either leaving America or like they come back, they don't fit in because you get to see kind of how the machine works. And the thing is, like going back to what I said about how America is branding, right? The brand of America is freedom, limitless possibility, right? But here's the thing they don't tell you. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody can be a winner. In order to be a winner, there has to be losers, right?
Yeah.
So you have to build on the skulls of the fallen. Like that's how America works. People have been sold the idea of what America is. Like I said, when I'm overseas and people say, "But you're an American," I'm like, "Yeah, you've been sold the idea of how an American goes." It's kind of like when you market a car, right? You market like a BMW. You're not saying exactly what that car does. You're saying, here is the idea of what that car does, how it's going to make you feel. And that's what gets people to buy it. And that's the same thing with America. You say, this is what it will feel like to be an American. You'll be free to do whatever you want, you know, but they don't tell you what the cost is. Like the American dream, that's that carrot that keeps you pushing, you know. And for most people, it's excess. It's, I want to have lots of money. I want to have cars. I want to have a house. I want to have things. I want to have stuff. And what I'm finding Americans today, a lot of Americans are figuring out, especially the younger Americans now coming up, because a lot of people, you know, they want to say, oh, these young guys now, like they don't get it, is they're able to see the reality for what it is now. Where when we were younger, you know, we got fed that Kool-Aid for a lot longer, and then we got older and was like, oh man, you know, oh, this is what it's, you know, you finally get out there. These people are figuring it out before they even get out there. Like, hey, this is what America is. A lot of non-Americans tend to still think that, you know, they're again, it's marketing. Like they're sold this market, like limitless possibility, like you, the sky's the limit. And for a time, I'd say maybe in the 80s, maybe the 70s, that's what America was. You could make it. Most people, if you came here and you worked hard, you could make it. Those people that have made it have kicked the ladder down so other people can't climb up. You know, in
Yeah,
order to win, you want to keep winning. You don't want to like let other people win. You don't want to share that. So that comes for the American rugged individualism. Like it's our blessing and our curse. That marketing is the American dream. And to quote a famous comedian, George Carlin, he said, it's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
for sure. You know, it's hey, good points, man. Great points there, Qataris. I share that same perspective because, you know, I'm from the West Coast and we're not too far from Mexico. And just like you, I've sort of traveled all over the globe and interacted with different people. America is like a destination. People come from far and wide to get to these borders, right? And I think it's like, you know, to your point around the marketing piece, they do a good job on selling this dream of you can come here, it's the land of the free, the home of the brave, and you can be anything you want. But you see a lot of these families who come from these, you know, economically deprived countries, they get here and then it's like 4 or 5 jobs. It's, you know, and that's not what it is, right? That's not what it's supposed to be, but it's 4 or 5 jobs. You got, and I've said it in a few of my videos where you'll have people huddle up in one apartment, a family of 6, just trying to survive here in America. And with that, I got another video that I want to play for you guys. And I think that you guys all share the same sentiment as, you know, and I'm making an assumption here. So I would imagine just based off this small little group, if we were to extrapolate out these ideas or these perspectives, this would be true for a lot of Americans. And so there is one that shares the same perspective, and I want to show that to you guys here. Let me pull this up.
Can somebody explain to me in crayon eating terms why I make over 3 times the federal minimum wage and I cannot afford to live?
Explain it.
I do not want to hear the pull yourself up from your bootstraps, work 90 hours a week. That's not the goal, guys.
No, it's not the goal.
That
It should not
be our standard.
Agreed. Should not be our standard.
I'm fucking tired of people being complacent with this uniparty, both of them fucking us over. When my parents were my age, they both made less than half of what I make, and they lived alone. I cannot afford to live anywhere alone. A 1-bedroom apartment, $1,800. 2-bedroom apartment.
This generation is locked out of living on their own.
Who the fuck can afford that? It is embarrassing to come out and say that it is a struggle to survive right now. But
I'm sorry, dude. I feel for you.
Many people are struggling. And do not get me started on what my grandparents were doing. They $3,000 house. And yes, I understand inflation and all of the bullshit that they have been pulling with the Fed. Why are we allowing it?
Why are we allowing it?
And then I clock out of my shift. I am
Big one
tired.
coming up
I have to
here.
go home. And I check the news. Another 60 fucking billion to a country nobody can find out on a map. What are we doing? Where has the plot gone? We have lost it, folks. We have fucking lost it. The American dream is dead. It is
That's
over.
sad.
Gone.
That is
and
sad.
Forgotten.
Hey, I think that is completely in line with what we're talking about, or at least it's around your sentiments, right? And this guy seems like he's younger than we are. And the fact that he sees his country in this dire position is sad. So, and I think you guys have basically stated in your responses that that is how America is. You know, everyone comes here, like I said, from all over the world, and they look at it as the land of, milk and honey, where you can do whatever you want. And I think there is something to be said about that, right? I think you can do a lot of things here in America that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in in other countries, right? I mean, if we were in some third world country like in Southeast Asia, someplace, you know, the potential to be a doctor or a lawyer or own your own business is not as easy as it would be to do that here in America. But that leads to the next point: what is required to be an American? So we're going to go ahead and switch gears here, right? We talked about what is an American, who can be an American, and kind of talk through that. But in your minds, what is required for one to be an American?
A green card.
A green card. Okay. Qataris?
What is required to be an American?
Yeah.
As in like what does it take to be an American?
Yeah. What does it take?
Well, it depends on what you start with. If you're fresh off the boat and you're a family of six and you're all working, like you can at least break even. A lot of people, like I said, myself, I grew up without a lot of connections. I didn't know a lot of people, and like I enlisted out of Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma, like, and I'll say it, the armpit of America. Like I left there and I joined the military because one, my family, everyone in my family is Army. So I grew up in that life. I seen what it can provide. And I remember one day my mom retired in her 40s. Your average retirement age is what, 65? I think they're even talking about raising that. But I told my mom, she's retired. I was like, Mom, I would kill to have what you have. I would literally go to war and, risk my life and risk it all for that because, you know, that's what it takes. It takes to break even now as an American. It takes all you've got. And, there's nothing, yes, we can vote, but it's kind of like power changes hands, but everything stays the same. Maybe once upon a time things were different, but if you notice, all of our problems, are getting worse. What it takes to be an American, it depends. If you're corporate, you have to be cutballs. You have to be cutthroat. You have to step on people. You're going to have to push over people, or if you're doing like YouTube, yeah, you're going to have to push 24/7. Like you're going to have to be able to create content like a machine. If you join the military, you risk life and limb, especially with things are now and recruitment being down. Like if you're in now, I mean, a lot of the times, they stopped loss during the height of the Iraq war because people kept leaving. Um, it definitely takes, especially now you have a lot of young people like doing van life, living in their cars, being nomads. To survive now as an American, it's going to take out of the box thinking. And that's one of, I'd say, the benefits of being an American is because we have so many different people, so many different cultures, so many people from different places, you have a lot of different ideas, especially if you got someone that comes from, say, for example, a quote unquote third world country. They're already used to living with less. So, they can live in a van or live in an RV and do what they need to do to get where they need to get to. It's definitely not easy for the people that were born here into it. Like I said, if you're in like uh a poor part of Baltimore and you're between dodging bullets and trying to get an education, you know, and that's been a problem. We have third world portions within America. My mom grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, before civil rights. It's a
Wow.
third world country there. You have parts of Jackson, Mississippi where it is a charnel house of death. People are getting killed daily. These are the things we're not talking about. When people talk about what it takes to be an American, they talk about like the corporate life, they talk about like the easy stuff, but the back end of being an American, especially, it depends on where you start. You know, that's critical. That's key. Where you start, who your family is, who your connections are. And if you have none of those, it takes everything you have to be an American.
I gotcha. Um, Great point. Great point there. Do you think that uh, America is done? Do you think that this idea of America, the history and all that, do you think that it's on the decline and America is falling? Let me ask Don that question first.
Hmm. That was a hard one. That was a hard one. Do I think it's? I mean, it seems on the downcline for sure. It definitely does. In the current state, economically, the political landscape, everything seems to be looking uh, like it's going downward. I mean, I know what's it 2024 now, so we got a presidential election coming up that is going to be highly televised and a lot of eyes is going to be on it. And as of right now, we kind of know who our two candidates are. Our current president and possibly former President Trump.
Yep.
And it's almost, I always feel like, well, I don't. I mean, it's fact. It's always going between the lesser of two evils every time. It's never just a clean option. It's never like, oh, this person is doing it right. I like all their ideas. This is a great move. This is always like, oh, this guy might be a little messed up and this a little less messed up than him. So maybe I go that route. And it's a very interesting position because the American ideal, the American just the whole way of life is basically crumbling
Yeah.
around this generation, and not even beyond just the general aspect of the politics, because that's obviously jacked, but just the social dynamics is accelerating the crumble, if you will. Just these people who are just kind of, well, I mean, let's see, I want to dance carefully.
No,
You
no,
got
no. Hey,
people
be
who
be
are just so.
honest.
Oh no, we can be honest but careful. What I mean, so this you got people who just they embrace these unique ideas that challenges common knowledge, and then you have the aspect of just different foundations and different leather associations that they have their own agendas, and everybody just have their own agenda, and everybody just pushing agendas to the point of just there is no unity. Everything is division. Everything must be separated. Everything must be segmented. It was someone gave this a term one time. I was like, that is a great term. I think they called it the I don't know, they said victimhood Olympics or some type of aspect. It was like, can't remember exactly how they referred to it, but just everybody is like, oh, I'm the worst off. Like, no, I'm the worst off. Like, oh, no, I'm black, I'm the worst off. Like, oh no, I'm this. I'm a gay woman. I'm the worst off. And
Yeah.
so it's just like everybody is a victim, but everybody is like still like America is still is still probably in the upper end of money worldwide.
Yeah. Interesting you
But
said that
we're
because Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
But please go.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that we are forced to choose the lesser of two evils. I mean, I think that speaks volumes because, you know, there just never seems to be a viable candidate that you feel like you can trust or that is going to work and, you know, move policy and legislation to benefit the whole. Which I think probably harkens back to my original point. Do Americans take care of each other? Do they, you know, make sure their brethren is got food in their mouths, that, you know, they don't have to worry about not being able to find shelter. And I think we can see this all across the country with the amount of homelessness that has risen in the last so many years. I think from the top down, they just don't care. And when I say they, back to what you were saying earlier, Don, you know, that ghost of a term, the powers that be, those that control, you know, everything that we do, they make the decisions for us. They really don't care about the average folk. It's about, you know, put more money in the pockets of those that have money, and they seem to be in the pockets of those who have all the money. So, Sly, Disciple, you got anything to say on that, man? Anything you want to add?
Well, your question from before was, is America falling?
Yes. Is it on the decline?
Okay, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because look at everything. Like that kid was saying earlier that you know, he's making 3 times as much as his parents, and he can't even afford to live alone.
Yeah.
So inflation is rampant because the Fed keeps on printing money, printing bills, printing, but you can't, unless new products and services are created. If you're just printing out money, you're just devaluing your currency.
Exactly.
And even here, we have a housing crisis, and everything, rent keeps going up and all that, because all over the world, the central banks keep printing money. And eventually, the interest rate on the national debt is going to be unaffordable.
For sure.
And then you'll have economic collapse.
Yeah.
And another thing about America is, no, sorry, I cut you off.
No, you didn't at all. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it seems that the Chinese are destroying America from the inside by buying up land and businesses, corporations. You know, Legendary Studios was bought by the Chinese. And, you know, when you own a movie studio, you can inject your propaganda into films.
For sure.
Yeah, they're following because, you know, kids in China, they're taught to read the Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Nice. And that's exactly what the Chinese are doing to America. They're destroying it from the inside, just as Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War. The best way to win is without firing a single shot, by destroying your enemy from the inside.
Interesting point.
And
yeah,
the Chinese are even influencing your political process.
And they also own a large amount of real estate here in the States. A lot of the prime real estate is actually owned by the Chinese government or their people. So I think your point is well taken. I'm going to show you a video here. There's a congressman who basically goes in on what we're talking about here, and he holds no punches, man. He throws everything. Take a listen to this.
This is all a scam. I mean, we got people that's getting ready to retire that's going to try to live off $2,000 to $3,000. Impossible. It's impossible, because what happens is it comes up here, we spend it. We're $35 trillion in debt. We don't have any money. We're dead broke. And then taxpayers have $2 trillion in credit card debt. We are in huge trouble. In this body, we had better start figuring that out, because we're going to have a run on this city here soon, and there's going to be about 150 million people coming up here saying, where's our damn money that we paid in? I could have put my Social Security money 40 years in tax in the market and probably be worth 8 to 10 million today. But the federal government wasted it. So I'll get off my horse there. But it's good that we have this, because we got I get a little pension check from education. I was part of a union. It's not going to help people. People are going to have to continue to work longer and longer. Am I right, Ms. Gender? Can you say something about Social Security and it being taxed for some reason? We're taxing people for the second time on Social Security that they put into an account.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out when Social Security was first founded, those who established it, it was started out as a 2% tax, and they said this will never take more than 6% of your income. Today it takes 12.4%, and depending on whether you go with CBO or Social Security trustees, it needs to take between 15.8 and 17.5%. So we're talking about thousands of dollars more per year. It also was actually only originally recommended that the tax be up to $66,000, equivalent in today's dollars of earnings. But over time, it has expanded massively, and the money has been spent every year. So whereas everybody thinks this money's been set aside for me, no, for the past 13 years, every dollar that has gone out of workers' paychecks has gone immediately to pay promised benefits. And that's what happens when you have a system that enables those in charge of it to spend the money in the immediate term and leave the buck to the next generation that's coming along. And because Social Security has grown so much, it's actually to the detriment of lower income workers in particular, who have to pay such a large share of their paycheck to Social Security. They have little left to save for retirement. And then lower income and African American workers have the lowest life expectancies. So they are the most likely to get nothing back in return. 1 out of 4 African American men will die between the ages of 45 and 64 after having paid into this system for decades, tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they might get nothing back.
What's the solution?
I think we ultimately have to shift towards a universal benefit system. That's what true social insurance is. It does not make sense that we are paying the biggest benefits to the highest income earners. So gradually over time, I think we need to bend down the benefits for the middle and upper income earners, actually increase them for the lower income earners, look at things like indexing retirement age to life expectancy, more accurate inflation index. And I think that workers need an option to have their money in something that actually earns a positive rate of return and that can't just immediately be spent by Congress.
I have a 28 and 29-year-old, 2 boys, got a job, working hard, paying Social Security. They ask me all the time, Dad, will I ever see any of that money? Will they see it?
I think they will see some of it. That's the exact same thing I hear whenever I ask a group of younger workers, and none of them raises their hand. So I think that there will be something there, but it's not going to be what has been promised.
So basically, you give all your blood, sweat, and tears to the country. You work, and work. And where you would hope that you would have a few years at the very end of life to be able to kick back, to relax, enjoy the sunset, and, just walk off into the sunset. That doesn't seem to be happening. I was listening to something the other day on the news, and they were talking about increasing the retirement age to like 72 or 73 or something like that. So from my vantage point, and like I say in a lot of my videos, we're basically indentured servants for the most part. You will work until you die. And God forbid you get sick, right? As I've said in one of the videos, because the legal drug lords, that being the pharmaceutical company, will eat up all of that money. So is this what America is? So when I asked earlier, are we on a decline? I'm trying to understand, based on what the congressman said and his constituent, are we done for? Is it best just to get out of here and head to Guam like Qatari did? Or head up north someplace to a different country like Canada? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, as far as the decline of America, I'll leave you with some questions, right? And think about it like this. It's more of a controlled crash. Think about it like this, right?
Yeah.
We as Americans, or for example, our American infrastructure as far as our 3-letter agencies, things like that, we tend to know what's going on. Okay. Who do you think is allowing these type of things to happen? For example, I think of the Roman Empire, right? Bread and circuses, right? You're gonna keep people pissed off at each other, like he said before. It's the victim Olympics, right? Oh, I'm black, I have it hard. Oh, I'm this, I have it hard. Oh, Black Lives Matter. Oh no, all lives matter, right? we're angry at everybody. Oh, now the new enemy of the day. Oh, immigrants. Oh my God. We don't want you here. We're already having enough problems. You know, they keep you pissed off. They keep you angry. They keep you distracted. Meanwhile, they can do whatever they want, and you'll vote in whatever it is they want you to vote in if they make you angry enough. You know, for example, uh, I've heard a lot of people ask me about like, oh, affirmative action, this and that, right? And they expand the scope of that now. So it's made to seem, because you hear a lot of people use diversity hire, like tongue in cheek, you know, and they tend to think that, for example, benefits black men. Like, no, it does not. Like, it
Yeah.
might benefit women, but not necessarily black men. And that's the thing, the divide. They want to divide you by gender. They want to divide you by ethnicity. They want to divide you by ideology, right? Meanwhile, they're going to continue doing what they're doing. Like you said, we've got the two lesser of two evils. The one interesting thing about some other countries, for example, like Korea, when they catch a president doing something illegal, they impeach him and put him in jail. When's the last time we've had an impeachment that led to someone going to jail? Like the last person to get impeached and get kept kicked out was Nixon. All right. And he didn't go to jail. He got pardoned.
Yeah.
So it's like if you really think about it, I think for Americans to wake up, because like I live in Guam. In Guam, we can't vote for president. I don't know, not too many people know that. We can vote for other things. We cannot vote for president out here. So it's out of my hands. But it's not even voting at this point. I tend to think, because they talk about like they call the what is it, the January thing for with Trump's guys, the insurrection, and that's not what an insurrection looks like. I mean, I don't condone violence. What I'm saying is if we had a bunch of Americans show up somewhere nonviolent, think Million Man March, but instead of it just being mostly black people, it's everybody, and they say, look, we've had enough. We're not violent, but we're here, and there's thousands, there's millions of us. You can't arrest us all. Like we want to talk to somebody and make changes. When people see that Americans have finally had enough, and I feel like it's going to get to a point where, yeah, it's going to reach a boiling point, and there's one of two ways that can go. The people that are most disenfranchised, they just rise up. They're like, look, I had enough. I mean, you're already kind of seeing that with people, stealing, looting. You got homelessness, and you have certain people like I've even seen on YouTube the way they report it, they kind of tend to show only one side. Like, everybody, like when I say welfare, right? What's the first thing that comes to most people's mind in America? It's black people, single black moms. But we are the minority. Like most people that are on welfare are white because they're the majority, right? But people don't think of that. And also, you have people, for example, in the military that are on WIC and food stamps because they don't make enough money,
Wow.
to get by. A lot of people don't know that. Like the military, like the commissary, things like that's already subsidized. Like you couldn't survive being in the military if you weren't subsidized on your housing and your food and your amenities. Like no one would join. No one would join the military. And
Interesting.
you know, they oh go ahead.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, I'm just following
You,
along.
the people are aimed at one another. And I mean, you kind of see this when you're mobilizing for war, right? Uh, Don, I'm pretty sure you're a military guy. Like the way they train you, and the way they talk about the quote unquote enemy, like you kind of dehumanize them first, and then you get to thinking, oh, I'm gonna go down range, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm ready to do this, who will kill, you know, you can now think about that. That's part of the training. They've had a think tank think up how to get young men and sometimes women to go to another place and potentially kill other people, right? You can pretty much do the same thing with your own citizens. Keep them mad at each other. Let certain things happen here, certain things happen there. Think about it like this, because we talk about border security, right? Like the drug epidemic, the drug problems that we have in America. I mean, that started in the 80s, the crack epidemic. Where do you think that was coming from? It was being let in. It's been a controlled crash and it's been going on for decades, but it's reaching a boiling point now. And I feel like there's going to be a big change after the crash. And it depends on how the American people themselves, kind of like if you look at, as people say, oh, like the government, it's there to help you. I've had people tell me, well, why you live in Guam? If something happens, you're on an island by yourself. Like, what are you going to do? And I always reference Hurricane Katrina. Where was the government? Where was the government? Those people were right there in the middle of America. All of the murders and everything that was happening. You had police murdering people in Louisiana, you know, and the people that fled, they got turned around. The surrounding places were like, no, get back in there. We don't want you here. So it's like you have to look at it from a bigger picture. You're being aimed at one another and weaponized so they can keep you angry and keep you conforming to what how they want you to believe. And that's why you see certain things pushed. Like even in media, you know, like you said, the Chinese bought our media. Well, they've let that happen, you know, and or for example, TikTok, the way that influences people. I mean, and it's retroactive. People think it's just the young people like that TikTok. I've met people my age and older that do TikToks. I've been out
Yeah.
walking at night and seeing an adult, a full grown adult, not like a Zoomer. I'm talking like Gen Xer doing a TikTok dance, and I'm thinking, wow, like that's like the ultimate weapon. You know,
Yeah.
you can get in and you can shape someone's mind, and then you know the little shorts that people, you know, that people get political and then people get angry and then they post. And what I always tell Whitley when we have these kind of conversations is today you have to be faster than the speed of stupid, because the speed of stupid is faster than light speed. I mean, like people will believe what is wrong much quicker than what is right. And we have these amazing devices in our pocket. I remember back in the 80s and the 90s, I was thinking, you know, because I was on the internet when it first came out, I was thinking, wow, this is going to change everything. Like, can you imagine how intelligent people are going to be? I always had this view of, you know, because like in the 80s, people thought the year 2000 was going to be like Blade Runner. We're going to have cyborgs, we're going to have flying cars, we're going to have cool shit, right?
Yeah.
And we get here, and I remember going, Mom, it's year 2000, where's my flying car? Like, none of that thing happened. None of those things happened. Instead of cyberpunk, we got lamer punk, where it's just like the same type of concepts. Corporations own everything. They tell you what to think, who to love, who to hate, what to buy, what will make you happy, what will make you whole. You know, who's in the in group, who's in the out group. The thing is, the immigrants that people are rallying against so much, they're victims too, if you think about it, because it's like they know that at a certain point Americans are going to get fed up. So you need new blood. Because one, we're having birth decline. For one, people can't afford to have families, and certain ideologies now have pushed the genders apart to the point where it's like I said. That's why you have people that are like passport bros now, and they leave. All right, and how do you fix that problem? You get new loyal subjects, okay? Because without subjects, there can be no kings, okay? And you need them. You need that new blood. So you get them in here, and then you have the people that were here. You piss them off, and then you say, hey, those guys are the enemy. You know, you set them against one another, and eventually, you know, the dust will settle. Time will go on. One will replace the other. Like I've had people, some even my white friends, they talk about the great replacement. I'm like, you realize that like most black people aren't reproducing? You realize that, right? Like you're believing the branding that you see on TV, you know, they always show. I mean, even in movies, when you really think about it, the subconscious programming of how we view one another within our own entertainment, you know. For example, when I'm overseas, you know, and I encounter someone that's watched a lot of American TV, like they're like, "How come you speak like normal?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You're not like yo yo yo." I'm like, "Yeah, you know, this is branding, right? They depict us a certain way, so you go somewhere and like if they consume that type of media, they're already programmed. They don't even know it. And then when
Yeah.
I explain that to them, they're like, "Oh, like I never thought of it that way." It's subconscious programming. So these days, it's a battle for your own mind.
It sounds like
And
sorry. It sounds like
oh, go ahead.
the overarching point is that it's division. Like they want to
Yep.
divide us, and
Hmm.
if they're able to do that, then it works in their favor, right? Because if we come
Hmm.
together collectively, we're far greater in numbers than they are, right? And the fact that, quote unquote, we live in a democracy, and what the people would decide upon would change policy and legislation, but they do a really, really good job of making sure that we are divided so that they're able to hold the control. That's what I'm getting.
I agree.
Cool. Hey, Sly, what do you think
Yeah.
about that, man?
Okay, yeah. As for what you asked earlier, that is everybody going to have to move out of America? Well, not everybody can do that, because it takes money to move out of America, and you have 300 million people. You can't just displace all of them and leave an empty land. Some people are going to leave, yeah. Some people got the resources to leave, but the ones that are poor and they can't do that, they're going to have to stay there and fight.
Yeah. I think that's probably part of the sinister plan. Like
Yeah, and like Qatar said, it's a controlled crash, and it's been going on for decades. Back then, people didn't notice because everybody was living well. The boomers and even Gen Xers, they had it easy. But now things are worse than ever. So it's come to a climax. And yeah, people are going to have to take a stand and say, no, we've had enough. Like, this doesn't make sense that you guys are living in your ivory towers and we're down here sharing a one-bedroom apartment or whatever.
Hey, perfect. That leads into this next video. Check this out. I don't know if you guys know who Tupac Shakur is, but he was one of my favorite. Oh, yeah. Wow, I like that, Sly. He was one of my favorite rappers. I grew up, him and I are a few years apart for the most part, but the guy spoke truth. But listen to what he's saying here.
This world is such a, and when I say this world, I mean it. I don't mean in an ideal sense. I mean in every day, every little thing you do. It's such a, gimme. Everybody back off. Everybody's like, you taught that from school, everywhere. Big business. You want to be successful? You want to be like Trump? Gimme. Push. Step. Crush. I mean, if this is truly a melting pot in the country where we care about, and Lady Liberty got a hand like this, she really loves us, then we really need to be like that. It's too much money here. I mean, nobody should be hitting lotto for 36 million and we got people starving in the streets. That is not idealistic. That's just real. That is just stupid. There's no way Michael Jackson should have, or whoever Jackson, should have $1,000,000 billion and then there's people starving. There's no way. There's no way that these people should own planes and their people don't have houses, apartments, shacks, drawers, pants. And ain't it bad that you got can you imagine somebody having $32 million? $32 million. And this person has nothing. And you can sleep. You can still go to the movies and then these are the type of people that get humanitarian awards. Millionaires. How can they be humanitarians? By the fact they millionaires and there's so many poor people shows how unhumane they are.
I mean, what do you think about that? 32, he said $32 million, and these people over here don't have nothing. And
we got billionaires now.
Right? But you have Americans all year long, right? They'll get out there, they'll wave that flag. They have all this pride, they'll pound their chests around nationalism and being American. But to me, based on what Tupac just said, it doesn't sound like this idea of American is right for people, for all of us.
Well, in order for there to be winners, there's going to be losers, and that's the great lie. That's what they tell you. And so everyone thinks it's going to be me. I'm going to be that guy to get to the top, and I'm willing to step on whoever I have to. I'm willing to do whatever it is I have to do. I'm willing to sell my soul if it takes that to get there. And that kind of plays into the human condition. Like we as humans, that's what we want. We want more. We always want more.
Completely agree.
They got the concept of this what kind of keeps everybody on that rat wheel is that the great American hope is that everybody think they're going to be that come up story. I mean, they think they're going to be the Rocky, the Beast, the Apollo Creed. Everybody this always thinking it's just one play away, one paycheck away. a little time, like I can get there. It's like, oh, you start this business. Oh man, you're gonna be the next Jeff Bezos, and it's like, so no one really shoots for the top. No one really targets for the top because it's just like, well, maybe I can get there one day. Like this false hope is just like it just kind of just keeps people just perpetually running. But it's really interesting to see the younger generation. It's interesting to see that young man is kind of break down how hard it is just to live in America, even with the amount of money they make. I think what some states are $25 minimum wage, and some of these guys still can't, you know, live on their own. So I think that's going to be a big problem. As well, it's a big problem now, but I mean to the whole idea of the great American hope idea. I think that's going to start dwindling down to that downfall that I guess we're kind of alluding to.
I don't know who Whitley is, but she be spitting bars. Sounds like this is a very intelligent person here. Whitney, thank you so much for your contribution, man. You seem to have a really good sense of what's happening around here.
You
Really
should
cool.
get on the podcast.
I know.
Yeah, I was thinking the same
I
thing.
told her
Invite her
just
to a live.
Yeah, I told her just come up and share her points. She's like, no, I don't want to deal with you small minds. I'll sit over here and I'll sit over here in the comments and tell you how it's supposed to go. So either way, we really appreciate it, Whitley. You are definitely adding
We'll
a
get her
lot of
on the
value.
next one.
Yeah, we'll get her on the
We'll
next
get her
one.
on the next one.
But she says Walmart is one example, right? We're subsidizing big business. Clearly. Yeah, I mean, I think this has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate the collaboration, gentlemen. We have been going strong for about more than 90 minutes, actually, almost 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and pack it in and get myself some sleep because I got to get up early in the morning and dig into corporate America, as most of you guys know. But yeah, but in closing, just wanted to thank you all very much. I'm highly appreciative of this. I'm glad you guys are liking the content and the channel. I'm just a one-man show. There's no editors behind this. There's none of that. I do everything by myself in my free time. And I'm enjoying it because it sparks these types of conversations, and which is the reason why I started the channel, was because it's kind of therapeutic for me. A lot of these topics in corporate America, or at least the people in the circles that I run with, can't have these types of conversations because they're really not open to it. And the fact that I got a mortgage and I got to pay bills, I got to be very, very careful. So this allows me the time and the opportunity to be able to, lift up these topics and conversations and sort of get some feedback from everybody else. And I love reading the comments. Some people go in, they get angry, but that's okay, right? That's okay. You're not going to agree on every single topic. And I try my best to be respectful and just thank them for their engagement. But in closing, again, thank you all very, very much. I wanted to kind of go around the horn and ending to see if anybody had anything else to add. And I'll start with Sly.
Well, just based on like what you said, that where you work, like in your field, you're not allowed to talk about these things. And it seems that it's because of this culture of silence that things don't change. That people are afraid to speak their minds because they'll lose their job and their livelihood.
Exactly. Completely agree. And that's sort of where I'm at,
That's not freedom of speech.
Yeah. You're correct. So once again, back to this topic of American, right? Because one of the tenets is being able to be a free individual. But I think when we really look at it, from a 30,000 foot view, all of these tenets that are supposed to represent America really aren't true.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective. Qataris, what you got?
Well, one, the house always wins, and America's like a slot machine. You pay your money, you take your chances a lot of the times. So the house is always going to win. Yeah, you might win sometimes, but the house is going to win. And when it comes to the American dream and how to make it, I feel like like I said, my route, I took the military. As Whitley said, you shouldn't need to do that in order to make it. But I mean, not everybody, not everybody can, do the same thing. We can't be a country of just all entrepreneurs. Like who's going to consume product? Everybody's an entrepreneur.
For sure. For sure.
So, and you are. No, no, I'm good. That's all I have to say.
Awesome. Don, what do you got for closing? And at the same time, man, go ahead and lift up the channel and let everybody know what you're doing, man, and where they can find you.
Yeah. So, I just think of this the current state of America, and this brings to mind. I think of blinders and echo chambers is what I think of. And until we can get people to take these blinders off and get out of these echo chambers, we're just going to stay divided and eventually watch this plane crash full speed. But yeah, about the channel, I say again, my channel was Don the Coach. I like to go ahead and take everyday situations and just kind of show lessons and life lessons that we could pull from other people's experiences, other people's mistakes, so you don't have to do it yourself. And also just trying to help men and also women. I try to focus on the men, but I find myself speaking to women so often. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm just talking to everybody these days. But yeah, so please just check out the channel. Definitely appreciate it.
Awesome. So I think based on the conversation, gentlemen, and Whitney included, gentlewoman, thank you very much for all you've added. I think this topic around American or Americanism is definitely disconnected, and it's clearly a download malfunction. So with that, I want to wish everybody a good night, and you guys all got my contact information, so please reach out at any time.
I'm trying to take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Cause see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete, 2 rows stuck by that code.